Running the Gauntlet. AA's program is a great road to life well lived. Like all roads, it needs to be repaved from time to time. Society is constantly changing. Being flexible and adjusting to these changes is a good thing. If not, we might still be saying words like thee and thou and wearing powdered wigs. For many people, AA's road as laid out in the Big Book is just fine the way it is, and their comfort with it is okay. It works for them just fine. For a secular person, the AA road is full of potholes. It doesn't matter which of these people you are or what you believe. This is not a them versus us thing. My only intention is to make the AA program palatable for the seemingly disenfranchised non-believers among us. I want the AA program to be an all-inclusive thing. I want anyone to have this gift of sobriety available to them without having to accept someone else's beliefs or having to deny their own. While reading the book Alcoholics Anonymous, a secular person may conclude that it was not written for them. This, I believe, is both true and false. False in that the author's consideration for secularism is minimal. True because it's only temporary. The authors believed everyone will, eventually, become believers in God. Some may disagree because of the "as we understand him" clause, but take a look at that. This is from Alcoholics Anonymous, Chapter 5, How It Works, Step 11. Quote, "Sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understand him, praying only for the knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out." End quote. There is no other option but God. We can understand God as we wish, but we're not even given the opportunity to choose God's gender. Understand him as you wish, but he will be God and he will be a male God. No goddesses allowed. That is what I heard when I first read that, and I believe I heard exactly what the Christian and patriarchal authors intended. It took me a long time to figure out how I might interpret that so it would be applicable to me. I believe that the Big Book was not written with respect and acceptance towards secular people, but there is so much wisdom within its pages that it has to be shared with and more adaptive for everyone. Unfortunately, translating it into secular thinking is difficult. The requirement for a secular person is to run the gauntlet of religiosity while reading it. Either in between the religiosity or because of it, there are many little nuggets of gold to be found. If while reading you become dismissive, you might miss the nuggets. It's a struggle, I know. The inclination may be to dismiss the entire work. It will test your patience over and over, which may be a good exercise for your future life of virtue. If you want the program of AA, I believe you should take up this struggle and muster every bit of patience you can. Accept that it will say things in a way that you disagree with, but if you continue to aim for the larger picture, you will find those things you are looking for. If you can read Alcoholics Anonymous with an open mind, go ahead and do it. You will find your own interpretation of it. That would be wonderful because we are all individuals with different opinions and understandings. Personally, it took me a long time to get past all the religiosity. I ignored the book for many years. It took me about 10 years to get past what I considered insults to me in the Big Book. It took me over 20 years more to develop the understanding that I have today. No secular member of AA should have to struggle like that. AA's program and fellowship should be readily available to every alcoholic. As you read Alcoholics Anonymous, try to develop a way of reading around the religious content. Try to understand the underlying principles and ideas. You do not need to believe in a supernatural being to understand the concepts of spirituality and virtue. This will help you to see the wisdom in this book instead of being blinded to it. Having empathy will be an important virtue as you read through the text. Empathy is defined as the ability to understand and share the feelings of others. Understanding what the authors mean and the goals they are sharing, as it applies to you, is critical. I might add that understanding and sharing your own feelings will be an important commodity also. Talking to others that accept you as you are will go a long way towards developing an understanding of the AA program. Remember the fellowship part of AA. Few, if any, can figure this out on their own. Reliance on others that have traveled this path before you will be invaluable to your continued sobriety. I have no faith, another intended pun, that Alcoholics Anonymous World Services, Inc. will be changing the Big Book anytime soon. AA has been delighted with their Christianity for 80 years now. Their refusal to change is their problem. We don't have to let it be our problem. We have the freedom and ability to change it for ourselves. I thought about whether I should rewrite the entire Big Book or just explain how I modified it for myself. Rewriting it might simplify things, but I don't want to just offer my interpretation. Explaining all of my modifications may be too complicated. I've decided it is best to critique some parts of it and rewrite the first 164 pages, which are in the public domain and, therefore, have no copyright protection. In this way, I can offer ideas of how you can modify it for yourself. Also, in this way, I can describe why I changed things. Each of us has our own ideas about how AA serves our sobriety. I don't wish to dictate. I only wish to inspire. It is very important for each of us to decide for ourselves what is good or bad, right or wrong, and applicable to our sobriety. You may wish to compare this book to the Big Book. Going back and forth between this book and Alcoholics Anonymous may be frustrating or troublesome for some, but I believe the effort will be worthwhile for others. In this way, you are not only reading Alcoholics Anonymous, but studying it. We have a lifetime of sobriety ahead of us. Understanding yourself in sobriety is a lifetime endeavor. I suggest you read through my book first. After that, settle in and take months or years to do the comparison. My thoughts and commentaries describe what I believe to be the essence of AA, or things I believe are important or inappropriate for a book that should be inclusive. Take your time. In my opinion, Alcoholics Anonymous is not a book that is to be read and forgotten. For some, that is all it's worth. I don't believe it should end up a dust collector on your shelf. That's what happened to my first big book. Today, I see it as a textbook. I consider it to be a permanent part of my reading material. I understand that many people will disagree with this. If everyone agreed with me, I would know for sure that something was dreadfully wrong. I didn't write this book thinking I had some secret to a universal truth. That secret isn't within the pages of Alcoholics Anonymous either. However, I believe it's a good beginning. I also believe that all the magic is within each of us. All texts are no more than guides. You own your copy of the Big Book. You can alter it as you wish, with pen, pencil, felt tip, scissors, glue, or fire. Oh, wait, I just heard that as it rolled off my keyboard. I am not an advocate for book burning. I'm not an advocate for censorship in any form. I am an advocate for sobriety of any type or methodology. So, entertain whatever mood you're in. My method was to highlight certain things, cross out other things, and make notes in the text and margins. Remember that it's only a guide. As you read the book, make changes as you see fit. Make it work for you. As you grow over the course of time, you might change it over and over again. Your copy might get so marked up that you need to buy another and start over. Do whatever it takes to make it work for you. Your sobriety is far more important than any reverence for the big book. Actually, irreverence is one of my favorite things. So, here we go. Let's start with the preface on Roman numeral page 11. In the second paragraph, the editors describe their great reluctance to make changes in the book. They describe changes as radical. Actually, what is radical is not changing it at all. This is exactly why I'm writing this book. The editors believe AA's success can be attributed to their unflinching, narrow-minded view. I'm espousing the idea that AA could be even more successful if it became more open-minded and accepting of all people. I know, change is hard. In the foreword to the first edition, on Roman numeral page 14, they use the term honest desire. Right there is a change. We no longer have to be honest to belong. They go on to say, we are not allied with any particular faith, sect, or denomination, nor do we oppose anyone. The AA-wide use of the Lord's Prayer, a Christian prayer, allies AA with all three of the above. Nor do we oppose anyone should mean just that. If those 5 words need to be explained, you're not as spiritual as you think you are. As you read through the big book, change the word God. Supernatural notions or the use of uppercase letters that refer to religious beliefs as you see fit. When I come across the word God in the text, it's helpful for me to visualize the lowercase. It puts that word in a more appropriate perspective for me. With this method, I can more easily understand that it refers to love, goodness, empathy, virtue, etc. Replace it with whatever works for you. This will help over and over as you read the big book. Many secular people have a problem with the term spiritual or spiritual experience. Many others do not. Always keep in mind that this is your sobriety. Always know that few, if any of us, are capable of realizing all of these ideas on our own. Literature and AA members will contribute to the idea pool. You are the final arbiter of what is right for you. Always remember that you belong here. Don't let anyone tell you differently. The dogmatic members of AA have cherry-picked the big book so that they may be rigid and discriminatory in their beliefs and behaviors. They want to exclude every alcoholic that not only refuses to believe in their God, but every alcoholic that doesn't hold fast to all their dogmatic views. Dogmatism is a very insidious and unspiritual type of philosophy. Anything that is considered unquestionable should be urgently and thoroughly questioned. Let's read the previous sentence again. Anything that is considered unquestionable should be urgently and thoroughly questioned. In the foreword to the 4th edition, on Roman numeral page 23, they state, quote, "The stories added to this edition represent a membership whose characteristics of age, gender, race, and culture have widened and have deepened to encompass virtually everyone the first 100 members could have hoped to reach." End quote. Apparently, the first 100 members did not hope to reach secular people. Fortunately, they did, and we will succeed in sobriety regardless of the difficulties presented to us. The doctor's opinion, on Roman numeral page 25, is old information, but in so many ways it is still true. A medical estimate of the plan of recovery is a little more than a quaint idea from this era. On Roman numeral page 27, Dr. Silkworth refers to the power of good. That's a nugget. On Roman numeral page 28, there is the first mention of reliance on things human. That's a reference to all that is not supernatural. We understand that many natural things are not human. We also understand that things like fellowship and love are very human. An individual's desire to change, along with our compassion, love, empathy, and sharing our experience with the newcomer, is what will work. All that is human power. Here's something that has always cracked me up. On Roman numeral page 29, the good doctor uses the term psychic change. This is complete nonsense. What's next? Crystal balls and exorcisms? I'm going to give Dr. Silkworth the benefit of the doubt and say he is misusing the term psychic. Many people, even today, misuse it. In a broad sense, it could be understood to mean something pertaining to the psyche, but it typically, and more properly, means fortune-telling, clairvoyance, and paranormal things and happenings. These are supernatural things, but the spirit world and religion are two distinctly different studies within that category. Perhaps he means to say psychological. If that is his meaning, I agree with him to an extent. I am not certain of the entire part of it. A lot, maybe, but entire? Maybe we'll just stick with some psychological change. Yeah, that works for me. Dr. Silkworth likes the term moral psychology too. Is moral psychology, as used here and earlier, the combination of psychology, philosophy, and ethics? He seems to be using this term as something supernatural. I'm certain that Dr. Silkworth was of great benefit to Alcoholics in AA in his day. Today, a medical doctor's opinion regarding philosophy, ethics, and morality are no more valuable than yours, mine, or the plumber's. My apologies to plumbers all over the world if that is taken offensively. I used to be one in my younger days. They have my deepest respect. On Roman numeral page 32, Dr. Silkworth advises us to pray. In many ways, I dislike the notion of prayer. Sometimes it allows the praying person to believe they are doing something helpful as opposed to getting off their ass and actually being helpful. This is my cynical conclusion. My romantic reasoning wants to see it as a form of hope. It can be an expression of goodwill or the outward manifestation of one's gratitude. Whatever form it may take, being courteous about it is a good exercise in acceptance and understanding of others. Nonetheless, I still won't be saying the Lord's Prayer at the end of meetings. There is much written by and about Bill Wilson. I see him as a person that grew over time. Towards the end of his life, I believe he was much more in favor of accepting and understanding people with differing beliefs. Bill's story is a very early writing. In the middle of page 10, you can see how ignorant he was of atheistic thinking, the origin of the universe, and how it works. Quote, "I was not an atheist. Few people are, for that means blind faith in blah, blah, blah." End quote. Wilson is being dismissive of atheism and towing the AA party line. It's not even original. I've heard this argument 1,000,000 times. This idea makes believers feel good about what we see as their strange proposition of a God in spite of the complete absence of evidence. Herein is the stalemate. Each side thinks the other is preposterous. Leave it alone. It is insignificant. We need to accept others just as we want to be accepted. Actually, Blind Faith is one of my favorite bands, so I must be very open-minded, right? Right? Hello? It's okay if you don't understand this joke. I accept your ignorance of 60s classic rock with a side of jazz. See? Acceptance. Easy peasy. In the middle of page 11, Bill writes, quote, God had done for him what he could not do for himself. His human will had failed. End quote. Try to understand that God's will or your human will are not the only options. Aligning your will to virtue, kindness, and love is another wonderful option that works for me. Quite often, my human will fails me, and I get selfish or self-centered. Sometimes fear creeps into my thinking. Understand that empathy and love is the goal we aspire to. We practice and practice, getting better and better. Realize you will never be perfect. Getting better at being nice is the key to liking/loving yourself and a happier, more fulfilling life without the need to avoid reality by using alcohol and other drugs. Now that we are past Bill's story, I will begin my secular rewriting of the first 164 pages. I have no interest in changing Bill Wilson's story or anyone else's, so I guess all you're going to get is 148 pages. From time to time, I will insert commentary, and it will be obvious because it will be labeled and have a different look and feel to it. So, how shall I approach this section? Well, I've decided to rewrite it as if an agnostic or atheist were writing it. I know this might annoy and antagonize those that may be too close-minded to understand or sympathize with our plight. I'm okay with that. I grew up in the 60s. It was a time of new thinking, change, and turmoil. Protest and defiance were some of the tactics used to influence change. I have learned that, quite often, if you want to make change, sometimes you have to make trouble. If, by doing this, I can influence some to realize how incorrect and inappropriate the book is, it would be wonderful. If not, at least we secular AA members will have something that will help in our quest for sobriety. Much of this rewriting is word for word as it is in the big book. Quite often, the original authors got things right. Sometimes I changed just a word or two that changes the meaning of a sentence. Other things needed a complete rewrite. I intend to leave references to spirituality because it means so many different things today. I'm certain that some of you wish that I wouldn't. No book can be everything to everyone. I don't wish to exclude anyone. I will open the AA door as wide as possible without closing it for others. Even if you are a radical free-thinking intellectual, I'm certain this version will be much more palatable than the original. I left in the incorrect spelling, grammar, and punctuation because I wish to stay as close to the original text as possible. I'm guilty of these same errors. With a bit of luck, the editor caught my mistakes. I changed the chapter titles only to distinguish mine from the original text. With the exception of Two Wives, I think the original titles are fine. Also, I left it as a 1930s period piece, but without the misogyny and sexism. Of course, if the text is referring to a specific individual, the gender is left as is. The original text is, at the very least, as sexist as it is religious. I've not heard many women complain about this. Maybe, as a man, I'm not part of those conversations. Maybe it's because women in general are kinder than men. Nonetheless, I hope you enjoy this gender-neutral treatment. Here's what I think it might have looked like if it were written in a secular manner with the sole intention of promoting sobriety and not religious conversion. Thank you for listening to the audio version of this chapter of A Secular Sobriety, narrated by Len R. I hope you enjoyed it. A printed copy of the complete book, A Secular Sobriety, by Dale K., can be purchased at createspace.com and on Amazon in the United States and Europe. You may also purchase the ebook for Kindle at Amazon.